Good afternoon, and welcome to the fourth episode of season one of Speakeasy, where we have conversations with artists, creatives, and troublemakers. And this week, we've got Tiri the Seed as our guest. Tiri is a Renaissance man, definitely.
Wow.
That's what I would call him. Poet, MC. He also makes beats. Author, published author at that. Look, those are the headlines, but I'm going to leave it to you, Tiri. 30 to 60 seconds, just, pack as much as you can in, or you can be really succinct. It's up to you. But everyone who's listening who hasn't heard of Tiri the Seed, tell the people who you are.
Well, thank you very much, H. Thank you for having me on as well. On my bio, it just says an artist that spoke words, and that's the basis of everything. I love wordplay. That's kind of where I'm at, and then everything else kind of blooms from there. So with wordplay, you then get sort of rhythm. With rhythm, you have music. With music, you have beats, and then videos and film, and all of a sudden, like you just said previously, I'm on brand. That's the seed growing into something that wasn't a seed to begin with. So that's kind of what I am and where I'm at and what I do. I try and limit myself very, very little to what I can do, and I'm always trying to push my artistry onto a next level. It might not work. Who knows? It doesn't matter. Like I said to you before, sometimes I just do things just to know that I can do them, or that I tried. At least I can say, you know what, I did try that once. It didn't work, but I tried. You know what I mean? And that's kind of that's what I'm about.
Okay, fantastic. So I think that gives a lot of context and a lot of color for people who are listening who maybe previously didn't know about you, but definitely should be paying attention. I think everyone should be paying attention to what you're doing, giving you their eyes and their ears. Tiri the Seed, and again, you were talking about planting seeds, and obviously the listeners wouldn't have been privy to this, but we had a little catch up and sort of just broke the ice beforehand, and we were just laughing about how you keep somehow finding ways that they don't even seem very labored. You always seem to find a way to talk about planting seeds, and you're always very on brand. Talk to me about how you chose the name Tiri the Seed and why, and how that sort of ties into, you as an artist.
Well, okay, so you kind of got to wheel the clock back a little bit. When I started writing again, and I say again because there was a period where I just wasn't doing anything creative. But when I started writing again, I didn't know how to channel what I was saying or where it was going, or even if it was a thing. But I knew it was definitely poetry. It wasn't rap, it wasn't MCing, it was definitely poetry, but I didn't know where it was going. But the creative in me wanted to try and make more of it. So I created a team called Wild Oak Projects. Now that team, we created a couple of videos and stuff like that. And that's kind of where we were going. We were going along the lines of, we're kind of content creators as a unit. And in my mind, I was like, okay, the wild oak is the actual tree. I'm the seed that birthed it. Therefore, I am the seed. So Tiri the Seed was then, I wasn't using the name to begin with. So when I first started out performing, I didn't use the name. But then I thought, you know what? You need to own this. You started it. This is what you want to do. You gotta own it. Don't do no like toe dipping. It's full. I want knee deep, ankles in, the whole bag. Put the whole lot in and let's go in it. Like, let's actually go, because all this toe dipping stuff, it don't get you nowhere. It doesn't help. You know what I mean? Own the thing, go for it, brand yourself as the seed. And then, because I am so, like, one of the things that drives my life is learning new things. but that is ultimately where growth is born. So once you learn something, you grow. And that is the idea of the seed, is to learn new things, grow, and become, every step is another level up. Even if it might seem like half a step, it's still another step up. So that's kind of what I'm all about. I'm all about the growth. And if I can then influence someone else to own their truth or own their creativity or own whatever it is they want through the fact that I did it, then more for it. Do you know what I mean? And that's kind of that was the real birth of the seed. It's kind of like there was a moment where I hadn't had the name, I wasn't using it, and then I just thought, do you know what? Own that all the way, because you only regret it later. Because if you brand it now properly, this branding will take me through to wherever my career takes me. Like there's no, you can't unpack this brand. Like this branding is solid. There's no unpacking of this. This is how I'm branded. This is where I'm gonna go. This is my idea, and this is where it's gonna take me. So I think that was another important thing. Is something that I can grow old with, knowing that, yeah, I'm happy with that. Like I'm happy with that. People can look at it like, yeah, that's a positive thing. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to certain other things, which, you know, you might not be able to call someone that when they're 60, you know what I mean, or 70. Whereas that branding can take me through and it will take me through until you know I meet the maker.
Oh, hopefully that's some way off in the future. Hopefully.
yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. I mean, so you talk about Wild Oak when you put together that team. Just to give us some idea, where is that in your timeline? Like, which year was that?
Year in the timeline. So that would have been. So I did my first stage show in 2017, or my first open mic, or whatever you want to call it, 2017. So it would have been the years preceding that. And I think the team kind of disbanded, or like I put a cap on it around about that. I think it was the December of that year was where we hadn't done anything for, you know, a good solid little while before that. So I think it was probably around about, because I'm just trying to think of when I started running, so probably about 2000. So it's probably around about 2015, 16, just before I kind of took another step into my own personal journey. Because realistically, like, the people that I was working with, they're all fantastic artists, great people. You know, we'll always be friends. But the honest truth is kind of like things became, how can I say, it was too many chefs and not enough kitchen, if that makes sense. And there weren't enough times where we could really sort of come together, because someone was living over there and someone was living there. Do you know what I mean? Everything was a little bit geographically difficult. And, you know, it kind of got to a point where it's kind of, well, we haven't done anything for a little while, and I'm sort of going off in my direction. This one's going off in their direction. You're doing your own thing. And now it's kind of like, you know what, we had a ride, we did what we did. We enjoyed it. We took big steps. And that kind of period helped me then go forward and own my own brand, if that makes sense, and really go forward for that way. So yeah, probably about 215, 16-ish, I'd say, if I remember rightly, he says.
I mean, how does that feel, like having to sort of call time on a particular type of project or collaboration? And I mean, you know, how do you navigate the ambiguity that comes with that, which is like having to start with a clean slate and effectively being on your own?
It hurt, you know, like, and that, my first initial thing was like, you know what? When I was sitting thinking about it to myself, I said, do you know what? The thing's done. Like, it's done, innit? Like, and in my heart of hearts, I knew it had been done. I think everybody knew it had been done for a little while. But nobody, like, I didn't say anything, because it was me that kind of put it all together and headed it up. I didn't say anything. I didn't want it to be done, because I knew that the foundation of the idea was good. Do you know what I mean? The fundamentals were good. I didn't want it to be done. But at the same point, I knew that my growth was taking me in a different direction. So in order to continue to progress through one door, to progress through the door I can see in front of me, I've got to close the door that's behind me. I have to do that. As much as I don't want to do that, and I still have, and I still kind of, there's still little threads of what we did as Wild Oak that I've still got. Purely because the way I see it is, okay, it didn't work in that particular format, but can I rebrand it later and potentially use it for something else later down the line when I might be in a better position to create something different, if that makes sense. We're whilst keeping that idea, the core fundamental idea in the branding. So I do still have little threads of it, but as the way it used to operate, it was a case of closing the door so I could fully go into another door, if that makes sense. And yeah.
So what advice would you give to like other aspiring artists and creatives about how to approach a situation like this, where you've got to almost maybe have uncomfortable conversations or actually have to make decisions which are not going to be fun? Because you said it hurt.
Yeah. First of all, number one, you've got to be honest with yourself. I think that is the ultimate key, is being honest with yourself, because that will then tell you where you're at. Because the way I did it was I looked at what I wanted to do and where I wanted to take it. And the honest truth is that I couldn't do both. I can't go forward plus try and do this behind me as well, because ultimately I might have done it in the reverse order. Does that make sense? I might have done this backwards. So actually, I might meet what I was trying to do on my way, on my own journey, further along down the line, rather than trying to build it when I don't have the potential resources, or, do you know what I mean? Even potentially some of the right team members, they might not be the right people, even though I thought they were. And they're, as I said, they're great people. They're all great artists, but they might not have been the right people.
Yeah, sometimes it's a fit issue.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to be honest about that. And like, as I said, I've still got small threads about the branding, and there's other things that I've still got and I've still sort of kept to this day, purely because the fundamentals of what it is completely tie into what I do anyway.
Yeah.
So it's never going to be a thing of it's dead. And also the idea that the seed as well, going back to my own branding, is completely tied into the fact that a wild oak will grow from a tiny seed. That's you know what I mean? That is the complete idea. So the fit is still completely there. It's just a case of, hang on, okay, let's grow you first, and then potentially see if there's anything or any potential for it down the line. The difficult conversations part, again, I think people or everyone appreciates at least the thread of honesty, even if it's hurtful and painful, and it's, you know what I mean? Some honest conversations are incredibly difficult to have. But I think if you just say, look, listen, let's be honest about the people are going to have their opinions, absolutely. But I think as long as you can approach that with a level of professionalism, take all personal feelings out of it. That's another thing. You got to take your personal feelings out, because you're already hurt because your idea didn't work. Now, somebody else one of them might be hurt because you said that you were going to do this and you haven't done that. All of a sudden, it gets personal and people fall out and nobody's talking and and you don't want to get into that situation because it's hella messy. You've got to remove your personal feelings, be completely objective about the situation and say, I want to go in this direction. Unfortunately, this is not going to aid to that. And I can see, and I know after conversations with you, for example, let's just hypothetically speak, I know you want to go and do this. I can't support that. You need to go and do that by yourself. I know the other person wants to go and do this. I can't support that. You need to go and do that yourself. And maybe all roads lead back to Route A. So you never know. You never know. But yeah, I think the key is remove personal feelings and be honest about what you want to do. And if it's not servicing that, then you know that it's time to have something, a difficult conversation to open a new door.
Okay, cool. So, I mean, look, you referenced your first open mic performance in 2017.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
I think, firstly, can you tell us a bit more about that, how that came about? And also, given what you're telling me about Wild Oak, and you're an artist, you're creating content, what talk to me about the gap of like how and why it took a couple of years before you actually sort of stepped up in person to start performing and getting in front of crowds.
Do you know what? Honest truth, didn't know it was a thing. Didn't even know it was a thing, mate. Didn't know you could do that. Had no clue. Had absolutely no idea. So I started writing again. And I was just writing on little pieces of paper at work. I remember I was like, because I used to work on phones and stuff, I was just jotting down little things at work. And then I progressed it. I remember I bought a notepad from Tesco's for 53p. I always remember that. And that was the first like notepad that I bought to start actually, okay, let me actually start putting some things together. Put a few things together. I was like, the question I asked myself was, how does a poet get recognized as a poet? What do you have to do? Like what are the steps you take to say, yeah, he is a poet? How do you get that recognition? Do you know what I mean? So I asked myself that question. And then that's when Wild Oak was born. And I started to we created videos and music and things like that at first. And then while that was all happening, I was still kind of looking into the whole, okay, we've done a few things here, but still, how do you get recognized as a poet? And then I was on Twitter, I think it was Twitter, and I was just searching up stuff to do with poetry and writing and and I found a poetry competition, a written one. I didn't enter, but I was like, okay, so there's that's a thing. And then I got in the rabbit hole. I started looking up other poets and poetry things and so on and so forth, and this poetry thing. And all of a sudden, I was like, open mic. I was like, what's going on here? What does this even mean? Oh, what is this? I think it was the first one I found. I think was snake. Is it apples and snakes? That's the first one I found, but I didn't go there. But I looked. When I was looking online. That's the first one I found. I think is it apples and snakes? It is apples and snakes.
And it will be. So Apples and Snakes have been like one of the biggest kind of organizations in the UK.
Yeah.
Really like supporting poetry and getting it out there into schools and to people and so forth. So sounds about right.
Yeah. So So it was apples and snakes, the first one I found. And I looked it up. I was like, it's in London. I don't mind that. So on and so forth. But the logistics just never worked for me. And then I found Poetic Unity, and I was like, they were every Wednesday. It was consistent, and I was like, okay, all right. So then I ummed and ahed about it, and I was like, I don't know, am I really ready for this? Is this even what I want to do? Blah blah. You know what I mean? You go through all the rigmarole mentally and stuff like that. And then one day I finished work because I don't live in London anymore, so I live just outside of London. So it's a jump on the train after work thing and get there as quickly as possible. So now I've done it. I've gone both feet in. Let's go. Let's just go. What's the worst that can happen? What is literally the worst that can happen? So I get there. Brixton, if you don't know Poetic Unity, Brixton Cultural Archive, Black Cultural Archives in Brixton, every Wednesday. The team down there are amazing. So I'll get there.
Pre-pandemic.
Pre-pandemic. Oh no, they're coming back. They're coming back. I believe.
Really?
I think Rags is. Yeah. I think Rags is. I think he's already had one show. I think he's already had one. So I think they're coming back. Anyway, Rags CV is the guy who runs it, and it's also a charity as well. So if you want to donate because he's doing some big things. Anyway, Rags CV is the guy that runs it, and he meets me outside. He's like, "Oh yeah, Tiri, what's going on?" And he knew my name straight away. I was like, "Oh, okay." Like he welcomed me in straight away. Don't forget, I was on my own. I knew absolutely nobody there. So he made me feel welcome straight away, which was a great thing. Then he dropped it on me. He was like, "Oh, by the way, tonight is a special. So what we're going to do is it's a Michael Jackson special. So what we're going to do is we're going to play a Michael Jackson instrumental and then you're going to put poetry over the top." I was like, Jesus, what? Can I not just do my thing and then?
So we're talking about Tiri's poetry over maybe a Quincy Jones instrumental.
Yeah, absolutely. What was it? I can't remember what the instrumental was. I can't remember what it was. But anyway.
I would kill to hear you do poetry over PYC. Followed by The Girl Is Mine.
The Girl Is Mine, yeah.
Back to back.
Do you know what I'd like to do rock with you. I'd like to do rock with you. That's my jam. That's my jam.
Absolutely.
That is my jam.
Classic.
That is my jam. But anyway, yeah. So now, remember, I don't know anyone there. I'm on my own. I've never done this before in my life. And another variable has just been thrown in that I wasn't prepared for. So, funnily enough, guess what? First up, great. My name gets called out first. Okay, cool. I don't even know how this is going to work or run. But I performed a poem called Time and the concept of time. Because that's one of the things that fascinates me is kind of like the concept of time and how time works. And potentially the idea that time is actually a man-made construct just used as a measurement or a ruler, similar to a ruler. And I nailed it. I absolutely nailed it. And I got love and met new people and I was chatting and networking and my energy was through the roof. And I was just like, I knew then, I was like, I'm in the right place. I'm in the right place. These are the types of spaces that I imagined me being in before I was in them. And now I'm here and I took the leap. I'm glad I did, because going forward, it seemed to be the right thing to do in my growth, and leaving sort of Wild Oak behind to go and pursue that was the right move. It was the right move.
Okay, and so did your first performance, how did you feel?
How did I feel?
Yeah.
Oh, it was electric. I swear to God, it was electric. Like, everything leading up to it, people say, "Oh, don't you get nervous?" No, I don't get nervous in it. I get nervous energy where I'm excited and I want to just go and do what I do, but I don't get nervous like that. And I was always ready to go and do it, like, and just to go and get it out. It was electric, bro. Like, I can't describe it. And the thing is, it's kind of like you have to experience these kind of things so that you know how to deal with them in the future. If that said, I remember when we met, and I said, like, these moments are our gym training for it. Like, this is the dojo. This is where we work. This is where we learn the tricks of our trade.
Is there's a movie playing in my head complete with sound, everything. I remember it was at Speakeasy.
Speakeasy, yeah.
Tottenham. It was snowing that day. It was a miracle.
Oh yeah, that it was on.
I was traveling from Streatham, I think. I traveled from Streatham into Tottenham, and it was just snow piling
everywhere. Yeah, I remember that.
You said it to me. You said, you know, this is the dojo. This is where we come as performers. We come to open mic. So yeah, sorry. butting in with
No,
my
no, no, absolutely. No, no, no,
pick up where
absolutely.
we left off.
No, but that is literally it. It's kind of like, in order to learn how to do something, you need to go to the place to go and do it, where they go and do it. Simple as that. Like that's what it comes down to. If you don't get up and go and experience it, because I could have gone there, experienced it, and realized, okay, this ain't for me. Like I need to go a different route with my team. Or like what happened is I went there, I did what I did, nailed every line, nailed every bar, every punch, and I even looked back, and I was able to be objective about my performance and say, okay, you did that really well, but you can work on this. You did that really well, but I think we should maybe tune into that a bit more and see if we can, next time we can do that. Because now I'm thinking about next time. As soon as I got off, I'm like, when am I doing this again? I need to do this again immediately. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and that's how I knew that I was in the right place. Do you know what I mean? Because the want and the drive to do it again it was immediate.
And from what I remember, almost having been there and having a front row seat, is that you just started hitting open mics and performing in lots of different spaces. And if I recall correctly, I think was it Speakeasy?
There was a speakeasy. I think
your father.
Yeah, that was Camden. That was in Camden. I think it was Leng, something like that. With Dad James put on a speakeasy with Leng Live kind of event as well, because we were supposed to go to Mind Over Matter that day as well. So we were trying to do 2 in 1, but that day, that was something special, because actually, to add a bit of context as to why that was so special for me, I hadn't seen my dad for 10 years prior to that. And he came over because I got married. Sorry, ladies.
May God give all your confidence, Tiri.
He came over because I got married.
Now, where are you traveling from?
Zimbabwe.
Oh, cool.
Mazimbo. So he lives in Harare. So he came over, and I hadn't seen him for like 10 years prior to that. So I hadn't seen him for so long. And then just so happens while he was here, that show was on. And then so I went to my mum's, where obviously he was staying, with my brother. My brother came as well. My brother comes to pretty much everything I do. He loves it. He came as well. We went there. I had a few drinks, and then I was one of 2 headliners or 3 headliners or something like that. And yeah, it was fantastic. It was great, because like growing up, I knew that he knew that I was writing, but he weren't too on that like that. Do you know what I mean? Like African, let's be honest, African parents aren't on maybe creative. No. They're not on it. Unless you are a superstar from the jump, they're not on your creative stuff. They want you to education, doctor, lawyer, and mine were the same. They knew what they wanted for their sons. But me and my brother we're not rebellious, but we kind of were headstrong like they are. Do you know what I mean? Unfortunately, they raised 2 of the same people that exactly they are. Do you know what I mean? Know what they want to do.
The parents hate it when they do that, and their own personalities revisited upon them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing is, it's kind of like, but it takes what they gave you in sort of ability, strength, perseverance, all of them things to break through the initial barriers. Then they see, oh, hang on, like you're actually doing something here. That there's something here, like, and all of a sudden they realize, okay, do you know what? You're not going to be the same as us. You're not. We can't. And I think about this a lot. This is something that plays in my head a lot. Even with my own children, I know that my sons are not going to be the same as me, so they have to live their life. And it's kind of like it gets to that point where I think because we're first generation, that first point was kind of like, it was a bit higher up, that realization of like, okay, you're not the same, go and be you. The environment's different. Straight away off the bat, the environment's completely different. So that kind of, it was within that moment, I could see it in his eyes that he knew this is where I belong. If that makes sense? And he knew I was at home there. He knew that was my thing, and he was kind of like, okay, I see what you're doing now. Go forth and do the thing. So that's kind of why it was special for me.
That's good. I mean, I can relate to that. So I'm of Pakistani origin, and my folks still haven't had that moment. I don't think they're ever going to have it. It's very much not about creativity.
True.
It's interesting, those parallels I have as an Asian with a lot of my African friends. Like, a lot of my friends are Nigerian and some Ghanaian. So you know that from those settings, it's like you said, it's doctor, lawyer, all those sorts of things. Because, you know, I ended up going to uni twice. I got an undergrad. I even got a master's degree in business. You know, worked in I worked in tech, you know, and startups. Yeah, you can't run away from who you are, can you?
No, you can't. And that's the beautiful thing. It's kind of like, even as much as they don't see it, like I said, the environment that we grew up in is different. Like, I didn't grow up in Africa. I didn't. So the likelihood that I'm going to be similar in the way that you've kind of got an idea of things it's not the wrong way to look at it, because they didn't necessarily have another way of looking at it, if that makes sense. Right. But it's kind of like, it's the realization is kind of like, okay, I knew what I wanted, and I know you didn't want that for me, but I completely understand why. But things are different. The game has changed. Do you know what I mean? And I've taken that kind of into the way I look at my boys. It's kind of like, the only thing I want for them is what they want for them. Mm-hmm. That's kind of it. Do you know what I mean? I want them to live their life, because at the end of the day, although we're kind of like first generation techies, they're intergeneration techies. They don't know anything outside of the tech and all of this and all of that. So their thing's different from our thing. Do you know what I mean? And it's kind of like, we have to look at it as a thing of, okay, your thing's slightly different. We're gonna have to, you know what I mean, look at it slightly different and work a slightly different way. Not too much, not so you can run free and do whatever you like and so on and so forth. There's boundaries, there's not limitations, but there's boundaries. Don't cross boundaries. But
what are those boundaries?
Yeah, in terms of basically,
look, you cannot just come here and mention boundaries and not give me some detail.
No, but there's boundaries in it. Like, so there's certain stupid things that that just aren't acceptable. There's certain things that you can't do online. You can't do that. Not yet. Like, my oldest son, he's 13. Mm-hmm. And he's got social media, Of course he has. He's gonna live his life. And there's certain things I've seen on there. I said, listen, I want you to live your life, but this isn't it yet. Not yet. You can't do not yet. I see certain things as there's foul language used, and there's kind of a way of putting it together. And I said, son, listen, yeah, like, live your life, but you're 13. Not yet. Yeah. I'm not saying that. Obviously, he's gonna use whatever language he wants to use when he gets to a particular age. We all do it. We've all done it. I understand that, but there's levels to this. There's levels to this.
I had to have a
and that's just that.
So go on.
That's just the basis. Sorry, I was just going to say that's just a broad sort of small basis of what I mean. You know what I mean? There's other things that
reasonable textbook stuff as a parent. I mean, I had to have similar things with my daughter, who is going to be 12 in October. And obviously, when it comes to certain language things, I've sort of had to sort of say to her, like, look, you know, there's a context where this is okay, and there's a context perhaps where it's not. As long as you understand that, then, you know, I'm not, you know, I'll be with certain things, but with other things, I've got to at least
You got to say something.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, they'll just carry on believing that nobody's going to say anything to them, and that's not the case. That's not the case. I have to be the guy who tells you, listen, that's acceptable, or listen, that's not acceptable, and then you can then judge it from there. But if you continue to cross the unacceptable line, hey, there's consequences for that. So, and that's the kind of the juxtaposition of a parent. It's kind of like I always say to my son, listen, like, we're good, innit? We're good, but I'm not one of your little boys out there in the park, man. Like, I will take everything that I bought for you back immediately. There's no question. All the good stuff, I can remove that. They can't. Yeah. So let's stay calm, innit? Stay calm.
There's still the African parent in you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what it is. Who I am. It's the way I was brought up.
Mm-hmm.
I was brought up down a stricter line, a much stricter line. But even down that stricter line, we still pushed it to a point where I remember my dad having that conversation with me, exactly the same one. He said, listen, we're good, but I'm not one of your little mateys out there doing all this higgy hagger. I'm not the guy for that. Yeah. So don't push me, because I will remove things and you won't be happy about it. Do you know what I mean? There's a saying that I say to my youngest son, because I have to raise him slightly differently to the older one, purely because, not to do with any things, but like, he's hella smart, like too sharp with it, like way too sharp with it. So I have to manage that differently. Whereas Tyler's a bit more relaxed in the way he operates and thinks about things, and he's very sort of conservative with his thought processes and stuff like that. He won't just do things. Whereas my younger son, he will just bang, done. But he's already calculated the risk. Like, calculated, whoa, big man, chill. So there's a different way that I have to kind of manage his intelligence, not to curtail it, but just to make sure that it grows in the right way, and doesn't take him off into a different direction. And I always tell him, listen, every man is free of choice, but no man is free of consequences. So feel free to, like, make a decision, be decisive, but just know at the other end of that, there's going to be a result. Every reaction has an equal, no, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Yeah. So just know, if you put in, something's going to come out the back end of that. And you may not like what comes out the back end. Just because you thought it was smart to do this, there's a potential something at the back end of that. So just be careful in your calculations and in all your intelligence to take a second before you act on something, because what could come back might bite you and you're not going to like it.
Wow. Oh man. Yes.
Life, innit?
Not arguing for a second. not with you, of all people, Tiri. I know better.
Oh dear, it's interesting, because all of these things that we go through is kind of like this is what creates the material. This is what creates the drive and the creative drive and stuff like that. So as much as sometimes these things are really difficult to go through, when you go through them, you can't see a way which way to go. I can lean on what I call my key therapist, which is the pen and the pad, and just push all those things out into that arena, and hopefully create something positive out of that. So it's those little things and those little moments. Sometimes I'm very conservative with what I put out in terms of my family and stuff like that. I think there's a lot of parts of me that I'm willing to put out there creatively, but like kids and wife and stuff like that, that's mine, isn't it? Like, they're my treasures of my things, and so on and so forth. So some of that, actually, that's on my team. So let me keep that one. No, you can't have everything.
You brought up something really interesting, which is, our relationship, social media and our relationship with it. So I remember there was a time where I would put everything out on social media, for
Mm.
better or for worse. I mean, I realize now, like, as someone who, at the age of 39, I'm 40 now, who's been diagnosed with ADHD and autism, I realized a lot of it was me not having a filter and me
Mm.
not being able to sort of regulate my thought as to, okay, this is cool to share and that's not. And it's interesting now because in some ways, like when I write and when I put blogs out, when I put certain stuff out, and you've seen this, I've shared some very raw and very vulnerable things.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, I've also developed a filter where, yeah, there's certain things where you're not going to get them from me.
Mm.
I'm very, very guarded and almost to the point of being cagey about certain things. So talk to me about just your thoughts on social media. Like, it came out with all this promise in the sort of mid to late 2000s. And, we've been on a journey with social media. I don't mean you and me, I mean we as a society.
Mm.
What are your thoughts on it and how is your relationship being evolving? Because, like, there's different, like, Twitter at times can be pretty mad, and certain places can, you can get lit up pretty fast. But
Oh,
then at the same time, you meet great people and you find out about, great pieces of art, or you get put up on certain things about politics. So yeah, talk to me about social media, because that's something
uh,
actually, funnily enough, I can't believe it's
yeah,
not come up with any of my guests so far. And
yeah,
when you talk about it like that, I was like, in my head, I was just like, especially with my ADHD, I'm like, Haroon, pay attention to Tiri, but don't forget this thing. One, we've got to get into this. So
yeah, absolutely. You
open,
know what? Yeah,
open up the box.
I, it's one of them things. I remember I was at university when everyone was just getting a Facebook. Everyone's getting Facebook in the uni. Oh, have you got Facebook? Have you got Facebook? Oh, you know this? Do you know about this Facebook thing? Oh, my, and all of a sudden, like, I'm thinking, Facebook? What? What's going on here now? I refused to get one. I was like, no, I ain't getting no Facebook. I got a mobile phone and I got text messages. That's me. That's me. That's all I'm doing. Yeah. And I remember it was my housemate. He was on Facebook and he was. I was like, what are you doing, bro? He's like, oh, I'm just on my Facebook. And I looked at what was going on there, and I was like, hang on a minute. I might need to get me a Facebook. So that's kind of when I first got Facebook. But obviously back then it was literally just for talking to people. Like, it was just literally about connecting people to this and that and that and this and so on and so forth. There wasn't really much about, like, the potential of you can use it to advertise this and you can do that with it and then that with it. That all came a lot later. Even with like YouTube, because I remember I didn't know about YouTube back then. And there was this guy, and we were watching Dave Chappelle on YouTube. I didn't know it was YouTube. I just thought this guy just had all these Dave Chappelle things. I love Dave Chappelle. He's one of probably, if not one of the greatest, if not the greatest. And I'm thinking, has he got this Dave Chappelle like this? Like, how is he doing this? Like, I don't understand. And then it's only later that, like, literally years and years down the line, I was like, oh my God, he was watching YouTube. Do you know what I mean? It's just a realization that, oh, we had it back then, but we didn't know. Like, I was oblivious to kind of like its kind of the idea and its magnitude and potential power. Like, you look at YouTube now, like, I'll be honest, if I'm not writing or I'm not creating any content, I'm normally on YouTube. Like, I'll be honest about that. I'm normally sitting on YouTube listening to instrumentals and watching podcasts and stuff like that. I'm on YouTube.
No,
Like,
I'm the same. So even last night, like you can get these like on these Amazon Fire Sticks or any other TV provider.
yeah, I've got one of them.
Yeah, but YouTube is a channel, so
YouTube is a channel.
No, so
you
it's
can just
not,
jump on it.
it's not on your laptop. On my TV, I'm sitting there
On your
checking
TV.
out
Yeah.
the latest Leon Bridges movies, and then watching
Yeah.
videos about screenwriting or an interview with.
Exactly.
It's mad, isn't it?
Like, it's crazy, and like, I'll be honest, innit? Like, Social media, I think it's dependent on how you use it. Like, I think it's one of them. It is a hammer. It's a hammer.
So
Now,
you're not going to use the knife metaphor. You're going for the hammer. This tells us
I'm going
a little bit
for
something about you.
I'm going for the hammer. This social
Why
media
the
is
hammer?
a hammer. It's a hammer. And let me tell you why it's a hammer. Because the hammer is a great tool, um, but it's only a good tool if you know how to use it and you're using it in the correct manner. Now, if you need to cut a slice of bread and you're using a hammer, then it's not going to work. Do you know what I mean? You need to refine the method and the idea that you're using it for. So with my stuff personally, because of the situation I always found myself in, where I'm not close, not always close enough to the scene that I want to be in and the main areas of the scene, because I live outside London. So sometimes it's hard for me to go to a show that starts at 6. Sometimes it's difficult for me to get to a thing. It might start at 5. I can't finish work at 5. I'm not getting into London until quarter to 6. You know what I mean? Quarter to 6 earliest. By that time, the list is done, packed up to, or the person that I wanted to see is done, and do you know what I mean? And sometimes I'm not close enough. So I had to find a way that I could still be as creative and effective with what I was doing and still get it out to get it I almost put it at getting it off my chest. Do you know what I mean? And getting it out to an audience, so to speak. Because I'm one of these people, I find it very difficult to believe that as an artist of any kind, you don't want people to see your stuff. That's why you're an artist, because artist is an art that you create for others to look at. You know what I mean? So to
Yeah.
say that, oh, I only do this for because of this. No, no, no. You want people to see it. That's the whole point. That's what art is. People see art. Like,
What you're
it
saying
is
is
what it is.
not, in your eyes, with art, it's not purely about creating, but it's also about sharing. So you actually view
It's also
art.
about
Would it be
as
accurate to say that you view art as, in a sense, an act of generosity?
yeah, it is. I believe it is an act of generosity, but also an act of I think it's also an act of immeasurable strength as well, because
I've never heard
the
it
the,
described like
the
that. Can you expand upon
because yeah, I'm going to, because I believe that the other side of social media is that it means that everybody's got an opinion and everyone can comment and everyone can say stuff and everyone can do this and everyone can do that. So to then, like, this is one of the things I always said to myself. It's kind of like, whenever you put something out, you are at the mercy of the social media. You're at this mercy. Like, you can't. People are gonna say stuff. They're gonna say stuff, whether it be good, bad, in the middle, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's all it's gonna come unfiltered, and we see that all the time in media anyway. So the strength comes from being able to stand there and say, no, do you know what? This is my art. I'm putting it out there. You're going to say something,
Mhm.
and do you know what? Some of it's going to hurt, and some of it has hurt. A lot of, like, there was a period where there was some comments coming back at me, and you know what I mean? It hurt. It hurt a lot. But actually, what I then did, I did a Uno flip reverse card, and then use that to propel me into a new stage, into a new phase of what I was trying to do. So that's where the strength is. It's kind of like being able to stand there and say, okay, I might get criticized. Um, some people are just going to say nasty things because they're just pricks, and that's just life.
Can you repeat that, the word you used? Because I love it.
They're just pricks, mate. Straight up and down, they're just pricks. I don't mind. Do you know what the thing is? I don't mind if somebody says something and says, okay, look, it was good, or it was this, or it was that, but maybe you could have done da 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 and then come up this and da da. Do you know what I mean? Where, or or at least bring a little bit of foundation to the comment,
Yeah.
rather than just saying it's this and it's not. It's kind of it's shit. it's rubbish, or you're, and then the worst thing is they get personal about it when you say, oh, can you expand that? Oh, well, you and then that's the instant blockers.
So
Block,
can I for a second give an example of something that happened to me that I don't think you and I have
Yeah,
spoken
absolutely.
about, because I think it expands on this, and there's some other points I want to bring out, which is, yeah, if it's constructive criticism, it's that. Now, I remember I was in a workshop with, have you heard of the poet Desiree?
Not off the bat, but I may have bumped into it.
Yeah, so all right, so this is, you know, a poet, a woman running a workshop, and she sort of said to me, like, look, you know, I want you to try and write a poem that uses an extended metaphor that sort of runs with it. You know, you take a metaphor, but then that's not one or two lines. That is the whole poem is about that metaphor.
Okay.
And so I did this poem about, you know, I had come out of what was, you know, a 10-year long marriage that, you know, we've spoken about it elsewhere, but I'll speak about it. It was not a good marriage. It was a very unhappy one. You know, it was not a loving marriage. It was abusive at times, abusive a lot of the time. And so, you know, during that journey, my own poetry, you know, roughly the same time I met you, 2017 onwards, you know, I wrote this thing where I used an extended metaphor for whoever my future lover was, using the metaphor of a beanbag. Because a beanbag, it's a lovely piece of furniture. It's one that my ex was never particularly, you know, cool with me having in the house, not my parents, because both of them they were a bit house proud. They liked aesthetics.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting someone in my DMs saying, do you not understand how horrific this poem is? You're a misogynist. Like, you know, beanbags are for sitting on. So you think that women are to be sat on. You think that we're just there to comfort you, rah, rah, rah. And, you know, she got very, very abusive. And I remember actually I actually read the whole thing, the tirade against me, because I refused to respond to it. Because when I didn't respond, she got even more upset.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't seem to understand that it was a feminist female poet who asked me to write the poem and who signed off and said, this
On
is
the poem. Yeah.
not just that, like heaps of women listening to it going, oh man, this is how I feel about my husband. But it's interesting how I feel like, and I'm curious about your views on this, because I'm not going to repeat the rest of the content of her text because it's pretty vile, and this is not what we're about here. But in this age where we're on social media, and it's a beautiful thing, because I think we've been able to bring a lot of attention to a lot of important things. You know, my daughter has, you know, herself has been able to express her own LGBTQ identity. You know, she's lesbian, she's non-binary. You know, a lot of people have been able to, you know, express themselves as they should about things like pride, Black Lives Matter. And when we talk about people being negative towards your art, and not, you know, constructive criticism, but often being quite mean and nasty. And then what I got, do you not feel like people sometimes don't take enough responsibility either for their own feelings or for their behavior towards others on a place like social media, where often there isn't that same accountability that you would have, say, if you were in an educational institution or work, where it's like, whoa, you can't behave or talk like that to someone. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Do you know what? Yeah, it's funny because
it wasn't funny when I got the DMs, bro.
No. I was what I was gonna say is it's funny because this is where the hammer comes back. And people just using the hammer to just try and use their use people's strengths against them, and almost crush them into a space of weakness when actually it was a space of strength in the beginning. Now, What annoys me is that 99.99999% of these people, if you were to have performed that in the thing or whatever or somewhere else, I guarantee you she wouldn't have said that to you, not to your face. I guarantee it, 100%.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that these people say, if you say that to me on the street, I'll punch you in the face, bruv. Straight, hard, straight. I'll punch you in the face. What are you talking about?
Do you know who
huh? How dare you?
Do you know who you remind me of on this topic? And he's had similar views. Do you remember, the comedian Nabil Abdul Rashid, who was on Britain's Got Talent and got
Yeah.
He said a similar thing because and we'll get to this later, but he grew up in Croydon.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Pre-gentrification Croydon, might I add.
Yeah.
Back when there wasn't any box park, there weren't no fancy burger
there weren't
joints.
none of these nice places. Bruv, if you said that to certain people, you'll get punched in the face. You will get, what? Are you all right? Bow. Hold that. What? You can't say these things. Like, how dare you? Who do you think you are? Like, think about it. Think about, like, people just think, oh, thumbs, and the thumbs start doing this, and it's just and the fake outrage and stuff like that as well. It's just like deep it. Just take a second, think about it, and say, okay, hang on. Do I have anything to say about what I've just seen? I didn't really enjoy it. Okay, well, cool. Do you know what you can do? Turn your phone off. Put your phone down. Watch something else. Go to another page. Unfollow the thing that you was following that you don't like. Why is that even coming up on your feed? Like, you mute it. Because there are options that there are steps that you can take without being, listen, we've got to be straight about what we're talking about here, because I don't want anyone to misconstrue this. Like, you can't just put out any kind of content online. Like, if you're putting out something that is like close to you and your heart, and it's a piece of art, as opposed to like, I don't know, some of the hate speeches and all that bollocks and all that. If you're gonna cuss a hate speech, feel free. Like, we've got to be straight what we're talking about. We're talking about artistic language, volume, and speech here. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, let's be honest about that. So if somebody is put out a piece of work and you don't like it, you don't have to like be up all up in the comments saying, oh, this person looks like a this and this. But like, think about it. Think about what you're actually like saying. What type of energy are you bringing into this? What type of energy are you putting out into the universe? Because you got to remember, cyberspace is a universe in itself. Therefore, the universal laws dictate that if you put an action out into the universe, that action is going to come back in a different way, and you're not going to like it. So think about what you're trying to do. Think about like what you're saying, and look at yourself in the mirror. Before you say something about someone, look at yourself in the mirror. Are you perfect? No, you're not. So who then gives you the right to go and say something about someone else? Who then gives you the right to say, oh, this person should do this and this person should do that? You haven't got all of the context. You don't know what that person's been through. You don't know what that person took to get to that stage. How dare you? How honestly dare you? Just judging people and and so on and so forth. And that's the bad thing. That's where the hammer smashes the bread to bits when you need a slicer, because it's meant that everyone's got a voice and certain opinions, but people don't have the filter to curtail certain opinions. They just have to speak. They have to speak now. They've got a voice. They can speak. Everyone has to say something. But actually, it was better when you didn't. If I'm going to be honest. So that's kind of my view, innit? Like, at the end of the day, before you say something about someone, look in the mirror. What are you doing? Are you strong enough to put art out there that can be criticized by the masses? Are you? Number one, no. You're just a viewer. Cool, fine. Do you have anything constructive to say about the piece? Like, okay, you might not have liked it, but actually, you could. Is there anything constructive you could say about the piece? No. Okay, shush. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's certain things that people need to start like operating and bringing into their thought processes before they just start doing this.
Oh no, the person who messaged me said that I hope you think twice before writing such toxic, horrific stuff again. And I was just like, okay. mad. It's mad. It's
It's,
mad.
do you know what? It's one of the, and again, like you said, that piece was signed off by a poet, a feminist, someone who obviously has enough. I don't want to use the word clout, but you know what I mean. Has enough. Has built up enough of a platform that she can put a workshop on that people are gonna attend. So obviously she's respected to a regard that is high enough, and she signed off on the team. So
Yeah.
who the hell are you? Who are you? Where did you come from?
But I think what this also comes down to as well is, don't get me wrong. As artists, we put out stuff and it may not always be perfect, not just in quality, but how we tackle subject matter. But I think this is what it brings me back to is it takes a certain amount of strength to be that vulnerable, to actually put your work out to be scrutinized. And I think
exactly
what this has done is this has actually triggered off a thought and a concern that I want to talk about, which is, if we're my fear, and I like your thoughts on this, is it's already really difficult to try and put yourself out there and do something creative. I worry that some people may not even bother because they're so scared of the potential, just what might meet them out there in cyberspace.
Yeah, I agree with you. I went through the same thing. I'll be honest with you. I went through exactly the same thing.
And how did you manage to get past it to a point where right now, you seem you're in a very confident and self-assured place as an artist, I feel, because I've been there for a lot of the journey, not all of it.
Yeah, I think that it's a case of, do you know what it is? Yeah, I'll be honest. Like, I won't go too deep into it, but like, it is a place of insecurity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was about owning it, because if you own something because the insecurity is obviously something that you don't like, or it's caused with trauma or whatever, right? So if you own that and say, okay, I'm gonna wear that as like a badge of honor, right? I'm gonna wear it on my full chest so anyone can see it, anyone can do it. Like, you can't come at me and use this as a thing to try and get at me, because everyone can see it. Look, it's right there. It's right there on my chest. Everyone can see it. So you can't use that. You can't use that one. And it was at that point when I was just like, you know what? It gets to a point where it's like, you know what? It is what it is. Like, it is what it is. You're not gonna change the work. You're not gonna be able, something you're not gonna be able to control. Mm-hmm. So only deal with the factors that you can control. What can you control? I can control the words that go on the page. I can control the content that goes onto my social media. I can control those things. What I can't control is how many people are going to smash the button, how many people are going to hit share, how many people are going to view the thing. I can't control that. All I know is that in my heart of hearts, I did what I did best. And you know what? I had fun. And that's the key. That's what overrides the not wanting to potentially put something out. Or so. Am I having fun? Yeah, I'm having fun. That's okay, cool. That's all. That is all. Because you can't then say to me, oh, well, you shouldn't have done this. Like, big man, I had fun. It was enjoyable. I had a good time, bruv. You can't stop that. You can't, like, that overrides the whole lot. It's like, and it's something I say to my sons as well. Like, because they play football and whatnot. I said at the end of every season, I say, did you have fun? Yeah, I did. Are we doing it next year? Yeah, we are. So listen, when it stops being fun, tell me. I'll just yank it. Find something else. It's not a problem. Do you know what I mean? I'm not here to force my kids to do anything that they don't want to do. And it's kind of like one of the traits I kind of want to embed within their kind of mindset is that if the thing ain't fun or it isn't servicing me the way I want it to service me, what am I doing here? I shouldn't be in this space. I'm gonna kick. I'm gonna bounce. Like, this is what I said to my oldest son and he goes out and meets his friends. I said, listen, out there is different. I can't control what's out there. But if something's happening and you look at it and you say, this ain't what I came out here to do. I didn't come out here to do this. You boys are doing something else now. Come home. That's what my mum always said. If you look at it and be like, I don't want to be a part of this, come home, bro. Just come home. Do you know what I mean? They're not gonna. You might get cussed in the group chat for it's like, yeah, but you, man, now you don't got to deal with a madness now, and I don't. So who's the real idiot? Who's the real dickhead? Because you lot got to deal with a madness now, and I don't. So see you later, innit? Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of that thing. It's kind of like that's been the main protagonist. It's the fun element. Like I just want to have fun in it, and I am having fun, and that's the best thing. I'm in a big fun space at the minute, and although certain things in my life might be difficult, and that will come through. That's come through in a lot of the writing recently. It was still fun, like to write it down and to think of ways of how I'm going to maneuver this out and so on and so forth. It's still fun. So that's kind of the thing that I look at as like the overriding thing of, am I going to do this? Am I going to put this out? Are you having fun while you're doing it? Yeah. Right. Then it's a goer.
So Tiri, we sort of earlier you talked a little bit about, you live outside London, you grew up in London. Talk to me about, your sort of formative years, growing up, like what that was like. How's it influenced you as a person and an artist, and what led to you leaving London?
My years were great. I love childhood. It was a fantastic time, I think that it's like the fundamental root of who I am, and what I've ultimately become, if that makes sense. We grew up in Barnet, North London, Barnet. And it was good. It was a good time. We had good friends. We grew up. I wouldn't say we were street kids, but we the way our road worked. There was loads of families with similar age kids. So some might be a couple of years older, some are a couple of years younger. But all of a sudden, what that meant is we would just walk on the street and we'd see a kid like that's similar age to us. And then we'd be like, oh, where do you live? Oh, I live at number da-da-da. And then you'd be like, oh, okay, cool. And then all of a sudden, we live at da-da-da. And then all of a sudden, that person knocks you, do you want to come out and play? And all of a sudden, you've got a nice network and group of friends. And then that just kind of expanded. And then I'll always remember, big shout out to my mum and dad as well. They their work ethic and the way that they worked for everything that they had is that's embedded in the DNA of who I am, is that grind and that hard work. Absolutely incredible stuff. And now I'm older. I slightly deep like what they kind of went through when they came here and how they got to a position that they did, and like the hurdles, the way that they probably took on those hurdles, but protected us from ever seeing those challenges and hurdles is out of this world, So yeah, they need their flowers. But going on, progressing a little bit, it was my cousin that got me. He got Puff Daddy's album, No Way Out. Is it No Way Out?
It was No Way Out.
It was No Way Out. He got Puff Daddy's album, and it had parental advisory on there. We were just like, hey, bruv, you allowed this, bruv? You allowed this, bruv? No, I don't think you're allowed this one, bruv. And I remember I heard that album, and that was it. I was completely sold. And from that point onwards, I just had to know every word, every bar, how it's formulated, how they kind of skip you on the beats and stuff like that. Somebody challenged me Notorious Thugs by B.I.G. and Notorious B.I.G. Both Thugs and Harmony. Sick beat. If you ain't heard it, go back, listen to this. Notorious Thugs, right? And it was a fast beat, but I knew every word. And I said to him, I know every word to that song. He said, no, you don't. So at this time, we used to go youth club when youth clubs were a thing. We used to go youth club, and there was a little DJ booth, and he put the tune on in the thing, and he gave me the mic, and he said, go on then, sing as you know every word. And I rapped it, the whole thing all the way through, and he was just standing there just like, do it again. Just like and it was at that moment, my boy and my good friend, DJ Pure, he only lived around the corner from me, actually. And he come up to me and was like, bruv, that was sick. You need to come to my house and we'll do a set. I was like, all right. He's like, when do you want? He's like, come on Saturday. We're going to do a set on Saturday. These times, I don't really know what he's talking about. Like, do a set of, I was like, do a set of what? I don't really know what he's talking about. But I knew there was that, I knew about decks and mixing and, you know, the scratches. And that's the kind of idea I had in my head, but I wasn't sure. And then we went to his place, and it's garage. He's put on some garage. And there's a bit of funky house in there, and you know what I mean, early grime sounds and stuff like that. And this is the beginning of where kind of like where I am now. It's kind of like we started MCing and being a garage MC first, and then going into elevating into grime.
And now?
And now it's
hip-hop?
I just speak words.
your complete reluctance to ever kind of just adhere or stick to the label. I love it.
No, I just speak words because you know what? Yeah, actually, funny enough, I wrote a freestyle literally like a day ago, 2 days ago. That states it's like I don't have a genre.
You to do that towards the end, so
I don't have a genre, or I don't have like a place. I just float in and out of different spectrums, and I'm quite happy to do that, and I will do that continuously because I hate the idea of being pigeonholed, boxed in, or like you can only do this. You're this. You are this. This is all that you can do. Well, no, actually, it's not, because I know people who can draw and do poetry. So what are they? Like, you won't box them in, would you? So just because like my art form is mainly driven by words, it doesn't necessarily mean I only word in one way. So that's kind of where the root come from and the placing. But I stopped doing it for a long time because like you said, what took me away from London is, I went to university, and then basically, long story short, I didn't get a degree. I got a child. So so there was and I was never gonna not be with my son, so I kind of came it meant me coming out of London, going to raise my son and become something that I was never ever ready for. Let's be completely honest about it. I was living a life, I wasn't ready for this. But I was a kid who had a kid, and that kid made me a grown-up. So
how old are you?
I can't complain.
None.
I was 21, I think.
How old are you now?
21. 36. Oh no, I was 22. Yeah, I was 22, about to be 23.
Okay.
I was 22, about to be 23. So, but H, like people say, oh yeah, at 18, you can do this. Big man, I think you're still a kid until you're 25. Like you're still formative.
I tell you
You're
what,
still a kid until 25. After 25, then it's kind of like, oh, hang on, what is my life really about? Do you know what I mean? But until that point, you're living. Do you know what I mean? You are living life. So yeah, I was a kid, but I was mentally strong enough to say, you know, it is what it is. But that meant that I lost myself in a big way because I didn't really know. I was just sort of navigating through life day by day and not really knowing what to do, where to go. I didn't know what made me me at that point. And it was only when,
So I want to ask you about this because something that I picked up on while we're having this conversation today was you talked about, you know, I stopped writing and now I'm into it and so forth. Was it this particular inflection point in life where you had to
yeah,
adapt
yeah, it was it.
and you weren't able to then, like, other stuff had to get, you know, put on ice, so
Yeah,
to speak?
yeah. Not even ice. It just kind of stopped. It just stopped. It wasn't a conscious thing. To be honest, at university, because there was so much going on, like the writing had almost dropped off a hill. And it wasn't the same as it was before at all because of the change of environment. The environment changed all of a sudden. I'm not in that same environment that I was in before. And then when everything changed again,
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of just like the death sentence for it. Do you know, if that makes sense? It was just like the nail in the coffin, the proverbial nail in the coffin, and it just stopped. It wasn't, as I say, it wasn't a conscious thing. It just like, you know what, I didn't do it. And it was only sorry, excuse me, it was only when I had, when my second son was born, and I was working, at Enterprise, so Enterprise. I went through a mad sort of period mentally. I just couldn't cope with pressure and stress. And this was the first time where mental health became a thing to me. I
Okay.
didn't know that there was a problem. And this was the first time where it became a thing. And I'll always remember to this day, I remember I went for a walk and I had a few days off work. I went for a walk and I rang my mum. I was like, Mum, look, there's something going on. I don't know what's going on. Very honest. And she just said to me, are you writing it down? I was like, writing what down? What do you mean? And she said, so she goes, so you mean to tell me you spent your whole teenage years writing down your lyrics, your pain, getting it all off your chest, using that energy in a positive way, and you're a big man now and you're not writing it down. And that's when I was like, oh, I was like, Mom, you've got the whole game on smash. I was like, you had the whole game on smash. You knew all this time what was happening. And I was like, right. And that was the moment when I went and bought the Tesco notepad for 53p. That was that
So we
that
actually
was
moved
that
back to that pivotal moment that you
yeah,
referenced.
that was the moment when I was like, okay, all right, let's take this serious now. Let's actually start writing this. Let's get this pain out and start writing it down. And I've never looked back. I've never looked back from that moment. And it's kind of like it goes back to them kind of fundamentals of kind of like working hard to try and create something from ultimately nothing. And it was literally jottings, notes on a Tesco 53p notepad that I then took to stage and so on and so forth. I mean, we're not astronomically through the roof yet, but this is how it all kind of came together, and that's the beauty of the ability to look back. It's kind of like when and I know we're going to go back to the mental health part soon, but like it took that kind of adversity to get me back to realizing, oh, hang on, what actually makes me me? Like,
Mhm.
what is it? What is that? Who am I? Who am I? Because I'll be honest, I became a bit of a drone. Just work, sleep, pay bills, raise children, love wife for 20 minutes, go back to work, sleep, da da da, and it just do you know what I mean? And that pattern, it pushed me into a terrible space. That it's not nice. It's not nice. But thank God for mum because if it was almost like if it weren't for her, then or that conversation. And this is what I talk about, like the universe and it having its way of coming back around to say, this is where you belong doing this. This is what it is you do that. And now, because I do that, I'm having fun. And now the fun takes away the stress, and the stress removes their anxieties and the pressures and the da 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 da, and it all becomes a long chain of a cycle that hopefully breeds positivity.
Okay, brilliant. And so you've touched upon mental health. You know, can you talk about this project that you did for a while called the Men Toolbox, and like what brought that about, and how that was received?
It was greatly received, actually. It was one of them things where the funny thing is, it's kind of like when you go through a moment mentally, it kind of opens the door for the possibility of it happening again, unfortunately. It's kind of like an open wound a little bit. Like you can put a plaster on it for a little while, but sometimes that thing gets ripped off and it's open again, and like it's just an unfortunate thing, and you don't know when that's going to happen. So now I kind of got an idea of what was happening. Sorry, excuse me. There were spates and bouts of dipping in and out of mad anxieties and stresses and things like that, and to the point of anxiety attacks and panic attacks and shaking and all kinds of crazy things. Not to say crazy things, it's terrible use of language, but all kinds of things that aren't good. And again, I go back to the pen being my ultimate therapist. It was the only way I knew how to get it out and release it. And then I took it a step further, where I actually put it out there online and stuff like that. The only thing that I find with that and saying that and being in that vulnerable state is that it's beautiful, because you encourage people who potentially A, didn't know that you go through things like that, B, have been through things like that themselves, and C, are strong enough to talk about it. All of a sudden they're like, oh, Rob, you went through, I had the same thing. And they want to talk about it now. And that's the beautiful thing. That's the beautiful side of it, because all of a sudden you open up these conversations. And that's why I call it the Men Toolbox, because this is your toolbox. If you open that up, all of a sudden people want to give you tools and you can share and da 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 da. The thing that frustrates me is that people almost class it slight low key as a bit of clout chasing, and a bit of like, oh, you're only saying that to get this reaction, and you're only doing that because of this, and da 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 and da 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 da. And it's kind of like, no, I'm not actually. I'm not. And I'll tell you why. It's because I have an art form that I can channel this negative energy into to create something nice. That's what I'm doing. And a byproduct of that is that people react to it. That's just a byproduct of the fact that I've got a channel. I can channel this art somewhere, or this pain somewhere, should I say. That's probably a better way of putting it, channel the pain somewhere. A byproduct of that is people react. Like, it's almost like work. It's almost like work. It's like saying, oh, well, you only go to work for the money. Yeah, I do only go to work for the money, because that's a byproduct of me swapping time for the thing. Like, that's what that's about. Like, there is a reaction, and yeah, I do want a reaction, because I want to see if what I say helps others. So yeah, it is a reactivery. I'm gonna say that's a word. Anyway, it is
a reactionary.
Reactionary, that's the word I was looking for. It is a reactionary.
Between two wordsmiths, we're going to get it covered. Don't worry.
Yeah, exactly. It is a reactionary reaction, because I am looking for a reaction, but the reaction I'm looking for isn't one of clout. It's one of trying to reach people who weren't strong enough to say it themselves. So they can use me as a speaker to amplify the pain that they went through, and then potentially get it off their chest. Because off the back of that, anyone who was in the comments or commented or said anything, we went off and had separate conversations outside of that and discussed things with people that now I didn't people didn't know that. They just saw a post. But you didn't. But what other people didn't see is I was having separate conversations with other people about some of the stuff I was talking about, which helped them ultimately and helped me as well, because it's a self-fulfilling therapy.
Yeah.
In many terms, because I get it off my chest and I talk to, you know what I mean, other people, and we can sharing our pain is, you know what I mean, what they say though, a pain shared is a pain halved or something like that. I can't remember the actual saying, but it's along those lines. And like talking is probably one of the greatest therapies that there is, because all of a sudden the weight's just that was heavy, it's gone now. I feel all right now. Do you know what I mean? So the mental box it's still there. I haven't done anything mental box related for a little while. But I also think that I'm trying not to stay in those spaces for very long, because it can be detrimental to my own well-being and my own mental state and mind and stuff like that, to try and be in those spaces where I am constantly dipping into that area, and that's hard work, and I don't want to do that. I want to keep kind of moving forward, but I'll always keep that door open, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and hopefully maybe next year when we're closer to sort of World Mental Health, I think month or week day, it would be definitely great to have you back in, just to sort of briefly do a little piece.
Just to briefly do it. Yeah, exactly.
We'll get you and Sarah and some other people in. Sarah Callahan,
yeah,
listening. Okay, so I mean, look, you talk about how when you first heard Biggie, Bone Thugs and Harmony, Puff Daddy, all of a sudden you were just brought to life by rap and hip hop music, and it was kind of similar for me in the 90s. I think I listened to a lot of Tupac in the mid 90s, and then around 98, I think around even before that, someone played me Eric B and Rakim, KRS-One, a whole bunch of Public Enemy and a lot of old school stuff, and I was hooked as well. So you've had this journey where you got really turned on by rap, and then you started writing, and then certain circumstances kicked in your life, and then you stopped, and then you started writing again, and then you've been doing poetry. And one of the things that I found really exciting to watch, after having shared a bunch of stages with you as a poet, was you started something called Rhymes in the Room, which it wasn't just high quality, like the production values of the music and the video and everything. Some of that shit was hilarious. Like there was a lot of rhymes and everything. So just talk to me about how you sort of found yourself getting back into emceeing and how that journey's been, and just how Rhymes in the Room went. Because if I hear this correctly, that's being shelved, which I'm crushed to hear about. But now that we're having this conversation today, I know that any door that you close means that you're literally building a bigger door. So let's get into that.
Yeah, I mean, chronologically, it'd be best to start with Rhymes in the Room, because that's kind of where that journey really began. And the reason I did Rhymes in the Room was because it was after we spoke about earlier, the Leng Live with Speakeasy and that, so on and so forth. I always remember Dan James, by the way, one of our good friends, big up Dan James, absolute
also known as, in a previous life, known as the poet called Acapella.
Acapella, man, like Acapella.
Dan
words
James.
for days.
Poet, but also not just an incredible poet, but a great guy overall, wonderful human being.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Honestly, this guy, and his energy, that is his best trait. The energy different.
You wouldn't be having this interview, if it weren't for him, because he's the one who.
You know what, low key,
you and me on the same bill.
Introduced us. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, big up Dan James. Honorable shout out. He needs his flowers as well. But I always remember I was working quite closely with him, and his thing was going a little bit. I remember Speakeasy was going a little bit left now, and that wasn't really going the way he wanted it to go. And then I came into a situation where my plan was that year was from that used to use that piece that I did with them as the springboard to go and just kill it that summer, just absolutely kill every stage that summer. And sorry, excuse me. There became a situation where I couldn't do that. I couldn't execute that plan. So this is where I go back to being able to reformulate and start again, and then utilize the tools that you have to create something different. So I sat down with myself and I said, okay, what the hell can we do? I've got bars and bars out here that I need to get off my chest. I don't know what to do with them. I thought, all right, well, you've got a mic, you've got a computer, you've got a camera. What more do you need? What more do you need? You've got the tools. You've got the tools.
Broadband.
Got broadband as well. So
I'm being a smarty pants now.
Yeah, but you're right though. You're right. The tools are here. Like you don't need anything else. And then you just need a name. And I was just like, well, rhymes in the rooms in the rhyme, rhymes in the room. Yeah, okay, let's go with that. So then boom, rhymes in the room's born. And then I'm, that's when I'm using my other skills that I've sort of picked up along the way in terms of editing, sound production, a little bit of videography. I wouldn't even class it as videography, to be honest. I just know my way around the camera a little bit. So I can do that. So it's not really a problem for me. And then utilizing the tools, the editing software and the audio workspaces and stuff like that. Again, these are things that I learned in a previous time, and I've just brought them back. And it's just a case of relearning. Oh yeah, this goes here, and okay, that goes there, and okay, if I put that there, then I can do that. And oh, what features can I add? Oh, can I add that? And it was a big experimentation. That's all it was. It was a massive experiment to see how it would kind of work. And yeah, it worked. It really worked. And that kind of then propelled me into the next phase, whereby I was kind of doing shows and stuff, performing at places, and had this little joker in my back pocket of like, okay, yeah, we can do videos now as well. Oh, hang on, one of my earbuds is telling me it's running out. Where we can do stage videos as well. Sorry. So now I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, cool. But I want to go, what's the next level for me here? Because I wasn't becoming bored of poetry, but I was finding that my writing was becoming a little bit more rapified, if I can put it like that. I was starting to rap more, and I was enjoying it. I was like, how I want to keep the enjoyment up. And what did I used to enjoy? I used to enjoy rapping, I used to enjoy MCing, so on and so forth. So I progressed into starting to write raps. I always remember I sent my brother a sign. Now he's a big judge for me. So if I've got something new that's experimental, I haven't tried before, I'll send it to him first. And he's a man of few words. He's not like me. He's a man of few words. And he just said, I always remember he just said, yeah, you need to work on that one still. And I was like, okay, fine. All right, cool. I know what that means. I know exactly what that means. And that's what I did. I just worked on it and worked on it and worked on it and worked on it to a point where I'm kind of in a space now whereby as much as I enjoyed the poetry phase, I'm still a poet. Don't get it twisted. I am still a poet.
You never stop being a poet.
You never stop. As much as I enjoyed that, like, this is what it's going to be now. Like, I'm having too much fun. Like, every time I pick up the pen and I hear a sick instrumental, it's just straight in. All of a sudden, I'm not gonna just go away from that just because I used to do this or I used to do that. I'm just going in the direction that my pen is taking me, and this is the direction it's taking me. So I love rapping on beats. I think if you had a look at a couple of my latest Insta posts, I've been in a situation again, very similar, where there's some things I wanted to do. I haven't been able to do them. So I'm going to have to do them in a different way in order to get to the place where I want to get to. Sometimes I think a lot of people become disheartened when they can't do what their original plan was, which is fine. It is what it is. Like, you had a plan, you can't do that. It's not going to run. Don't just because the plan doesn't work, the goal has to change. The goal can stay the same. Just rearrange the plan. Do you know what I mean? Just rearrange the plan. Like, okay, we can't get there that way. That way's blocked. We'll have to go around. Maybe it's a long way around, but put the work in and you'll get there. All of a sudden, what happens is you go that way and you meet someone who can take you diverted. All of a sudden, things. Do you know what I mean? And it's a never give up thing. It really comes down to never give up and put in the work in just to continually get better. And now I send my brother things and he just sends me back fire emojis. So, do you know what I mean? And that was, I mean, I started rapping again. It must have been, I think the first rap I did, it must have been around about 2009, late 2019, when I sent him that thing and he said, yeah, you're gonna have to work on that. And but what I knew, because I spoke to him in person about it as well, and he was like, look, you got it, you got the bars, it's not a problem. You just need to get that flow back, get it back to what it was. Like, that's gonna take work. And that's just me sat at my desk. Look, like, I mean, if I just be a little bit, like, these are all things I've literally like written within the last, like, do you know what I mean? Like, within the last 3-4 weeks of just instrumentals, bars, and then hammering it, practice. Even if you can get like an hour in a day or 45 minutes, or do you know what I mean? Whatever you can do, hour and a half, 2 hours. It doesn't have to be all in the same block, maybe a little bit in the morning, a little bit after, a little bit, whenever you can get it in. This is a little gym for me. Like, I love going gym and that. But this is another one. It's just a case of training and training and training and training. Like we said, the dojo is on the stage. Then you can take that training to the next level, put it in front of people. Then all of a sudden, the people that you put in front of gets bigger, and all of a sudden the seed that you planted in here is now growing trees out there.
I've lost count of how many times you've managed to squeeze that one.
Oh, do you know what I mean? But that's
like bingo.
The fundamental idea. That is the fundamental idea. That's literally it. That is the mindset, and that is a very important word. Mindset is a very important word, because without being in the correct mindset, you won't achieve what you want to achieve. So, with the mindset of a growth mindset, which is what I kind of where I'm at, I'm always looking for a piece of growth, and you got to go where the love is as well. Like, certain people will show you love. I've learned this very, very recently, actually. Certain people will show you love, and others just won't. And it's not a personal thing. They might have an inbox that's got 1,000 emails in, and the other person, they can't get to you. So, and somebody else might have hollered at you and said, do you want to do da-da-da-da-da-da? But you're turning it down for the possibility that this person with 1,000 in their inbox might see your email and then might respond. No, man, go where the love is, because that's a step. Do you know what I mean? That's a step. So it's a big case of just continually working on what I believe is the best thing for me. And again, what's the most fun? Like, this is fun to me. Like, this is fun. Like, the videos I put up, the last couple of videos I put up on Insta, I'm just having fun. I literally I've started playing with a new video editor that I found in the Play Store, and now the videos have changed slightly. And now, do you know what I mean? And it's just being creative with it and being a bit fun and being a bit more eye-catching. And what can I do here? Can I do this? Can I do this? Let me try that. Let me do this. Let me do that. Do you know what I mean? Just adding different ingredients to the thing, just to see what we can get to and see where we can have fun, basically.
Okay. And so Rhymes in the Room was really, really successful, and now you're shelving it. So what's next?
What's next? The next thing for me would be to put a body of work together.
EP
Um,
album?
yeah, it'll start as an EP. It's the first one's going to be an EP. It's definitely going to be an EP. I think that's kind of where I want to go. I've already got the structure of it to work with. It's about positioning now and just basically building each piece individually, piece by piece, and just making sure it's at a level that I want it at. But also to make sure that I'm at a level that I'm happy to say, yeah, we're going to put this EP out and it's going to like potentially do the things that I kind of want it to do and reach the spaces I want it to reach. That's always been probably my biggest fear, is that if I put something out, it's not going to get to the spaces that I believe it should be able to get to. But along the journey, I've kind of learned that there are people in positions and in spaces that you need to be able to utilize to get it to where you want to get it to. They're there, they're waiting for you, they're the professionals in these spaces. Now, all of these things come at a cost. Let's be honest, that is their work. This is your work. You're going to have to cost this properly. Do you know what I mean? It's not going to be a thing of like, oh, we're just going to do this for free. No, you have to invest in yourself. That is another thing.
I'm assuming this comes to like paying beat makers.
Paying beat makers, paying producers, mix engineers, mastering engineers, and then videographers, editors, and then marketers, and so on and so forth. So there are people in positions. Now, the thing is I know a little bit of all of these little stages. That's not enough. I need, let's say, for example, you're a mix engineer. I need to give you my thing and say, Haroon, this is what I want it to sound like. Da, 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 da. And then you listen to it and you're like, actually, this sounds better. Da, 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 da. And then you send it back to me and I'm like, oh, I didn't think of that. Because you're the professional. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. And then so on and so forth. Now, the little knowledge I have of different spectrums is not going to be enough to take it where I want to take it to. So I have to give these things over to the people who know what they're doing in order to get to the places where I want to get to. And that is basically the fundamental thing. But again, it comes at a budget cost. So I have to do this stuff smartly. Do you know what I mean? It's all well and good knowing a mate. You got to know someone. You got to know someone at some point that can pattern you up. But at some points, you got to say, okay, I'm going to have a conversation with this person because I've seen what they do. I've seen what they've done with this.
And the conversation isn't just about the creativity and the work, but it's also about money.
Yeah, it is about money. Yeah, it's going to be about money. Yeah, fundamentally, okay, this is what I want. Cool. How much does that cost? That's the conversation, really. Like, when you break the whole thing down, that's the conversation. This is what I want. How much does that cost? Cool. Done. And then you can budget and then you can move forward for that. So it's a process.
But at the same time, sometimes certain things come along which aren't even about you getting your wallet out. It's about people recognizing you and just
absolutely
I'm the right place, which brings me to what I felt was a big highlight, just as someone who's a fan of yours. Being on the BBC on Ori Styler's show. So talk to me about how it came about, and just talk to me like, since being on there, like what boosts did that bring to you in terms of new fans or other opportunities? Because, back when you first started doing your open mics, I remember that when you did Word on the Street, which is an incredible event. So, shout out to Shady, Rebel Simpson, all of them who run that night. And off the back of
that was a sick one.
You got your first paid poetry gig. So I'm curious about how the Ori Styler interview came about, and what that did for you in your career.
Do you know what? It was really random actually, because I think I was just flicking on Instagram, Twitter, or something like that, and I just saw it was almost like a calling card. And it just said, "Oh, looking for artists, all kinds, poets, rappers, da 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 da." Email this to come on the show. I was like, "Oh, cool, wicked." I was just like, just because like honestly, you get to a point where like if I could draw a list of if I could list all the people that I've emailed or reached out to or looked for opportunities potentially with, even to now, like to this day, that list I'll be I'll fill an A4 note refill pad with that list. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
the list is ridiculous, but the amount that you get back is so minuscule. But sometimes I always work on a ratio of 10 to 1. If I email 10 people about a thing, I only need one response. I need one yes, and that's worked. And then that's worked because then I've got what I wanted out of it. Because in that list, obviously, I'm looking for something. I'm looking for a one yes here or there. If I get 2 back, I'll double my money. Yeah. So and that kind of helps with the fact that a lot of people don't respond. The fact 99.9% people don't respond.
All right. So, but moving on to like Uri
But
Styler, that one came about.
moving on to that. So yeah, as I said, I was just responded to this calling card, and then it was random, really random. About 3 or 4 months later, I got an email back. I was like, what? Looked at it and it's like, oh, do you want to come on the show? I was like, yeah, I do want to come on the show. Do you know what I mean? And that's kind of like, it kind of went from there, really. And we booked a date and so on and so forth. And yeah, we went up there. I think it was the summer 2019.
Yeah,
2019 summer. Yeah, we went up there and it was a bit of a moment. It was a bit of a moment, and he had a couple of other guests on. He had Nush Cope, who's some might know. She's a bit of a content creator on Instagram and YouTube and that. And he also had another singer. Her name is Shalise. She's doing some stuff as well. She's got a single out as well. So big up Shalise as well. And it was just a vibe. It was such a nice vibe. With great people there. We had a good time. We had a good laugh, and it was a great experience to be in that type of professional setting. I think experiences like that are great because you learn how to operate within these professional settings, because these are the professional settings that we're aiming to kind of be in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Ultimately, let's not sugarcoat it. We want to be in these rooms, in these settings, creating the type of content that a lot of people want to be involved in and listen to. So it was a good experience, and yeah, it was a highlight. In terms of off the back of it, I just went back to what I know to do best, and just to keep working and keep grinding. I think what I've learned is that sometimes it's not the thing that you're doing, it's the thing that you do next. Because it's all well and good creating an opportunity and getting your way into somewhere, but actually there's going to be a fall off period if you haven't got anything lined up next. So there's going to be a kind of a curtail that goes a little bit of a downward slope. So what you do in that period kind of determines not necessarily a mind state or a mood, but kind of like just keeps you going, if that makes sense. So for me, it was just a case of continuing to grind, continuing to put the pen on the page. And that was actually just before, so it was in that kind of period there where just before I started to rap again, if that makes sense. So that was that transitional period where I was like, okay, this is kind of like not the shelving of the spoken word, but like we've done what we wanted to do here. We're gonna transcend into a slightly newer space whilst keeping the space here as well.
Okay, brilliant. So, we talked about like what's next. You're working on that project. How did you navigate the pandemic? Because we're coming up to we've been talking now for almost 2 hours, and I can't believe we haven't touched upon the elephant in the room. Because I know that that year had a huge impact on me, and we've spoken about it's had a huge impact on yourself.
Yeah, massive.
How you navigated it and how that's again influenced you as an artist. and your art?
With great difficulty. Is probably the easiest way to put it. That shit was hard, bro. I'm not gonna lie, man. And it still is, bro. We're still fighting. We're still battling to try and to come out that other end and be prosperous.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
yeah. No, I went freelance just before the pandemic started, and my finances continue to take a battering, and I'm sort of climbing my way out of it, literally my fingernails.
Yeah. I mean, not to go way deep into the actual specifics, which we've spoken about privately, but my whole life's upside down, bruv. The thing's upside down. It's not what it was. It's not what it was. So even within that, it goes back to the original standpoint of using the tools that you have to continue to create something that you can put out even though you can't get out, if that makes sense. So continue to write, continue to just create videos and content and stuff like that. But also, I think in the early stages, there was a lot of online stuff, a lot of online shows, Zooms, so on and so forth.
Zooms and IG lives.
Yeah, Zooms and IG lives, bruv. And I did quite a few. Bruv, I got tired quick,
How come?
Quickly.
How come?
I don't know, bruv. Emotional energy, bruv. I think a lot of the time it's kind of like when I think the thing is kind of like all of a sudden everything was happening in my room. Like life was now I couldn't take anything away from my room. Everything was in my room and I couldn't get it out. And do you know what? Emotionally, it drained me, bruv. Really, really fast. And I did quite a few good ones. Big up Mind Over Matter, yeah. Fisky and the team, Bexy Bex and Anna Sinsky. Sinsky, is that how you pronounce it?
Anna and Miss Yankee.
Yeah, all of the team at Mind Over Matter. Just new flowers, man, because they did a good job. And some of the others that I did as well.
BYOB, I think.
BYOB, I think I think we share,
or Abdullah.
Yeah, soft spoken, big shout out to soft spoken.
I actually now work for him as a DJ, so let's just give that bit of disclosure in case people just purely objective plugging. No, I'm very selfish.
Self plug standards. So there was a lot going on, and I got to a point where I didn't want to keep up anymore. Does that make sense? I just couldn't keep up. I didn't want to keep up, and I felt like I wasn't going the way I wanted to go. So I went back to the lab, so to speak, and just started writing again, writing raps and creating some beats and stuff like that. Just testing my creativity. I've put it out there. I'm not like an A1 level producer. I ain't none of that. I just do stuff to test my creativity and have fun with it. And some of the beats I made, they're fun. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So
what you're saying is it's more an exercise in creativity, but when you're going to make a track, you might go and find someone where the level of the producer you are as a rapper.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So they can marry up because sometimes you're trying to create something for yourself and it's like you want a particular sound, but actually the sound that you're looking for, somebody's already created that. So why not just go to that person that's created that sound already and work with that person? Like it doesn't make sense. It makes sense. You know what I mean? Yeah. Obviously the financials got to work, but like it makes sense. Bruv, I like your beat. Can I have that, please? Yeah, you can. And then you can have a conversation with that person. So it was back to the drawing board, really. And now from that, actually, I got my. I think I really pulled it back and said, okay, what do you want to achieve? Oh, hang on, I have to swap ears. What do you want to achieve? And that really was kind of like making sure that I could go putting stuff out on the next level. So that's where I kind of released my first single on Spotify to the back end of 2020, which got good got good feedback. And then I released another one as well. So, and kind of goes back to something I said, I think I said before we started recording, it's kind of like, sometimes I just do stuff just to know that I can do stuff. So now I know I can do it. It's kind of like, okay, well, let's push that. Let's take his period. Let's learn. Let's create. Let's get our mindset right. Let's make sure everything's in place. And then the next thing we do in that arena is going to be the level up. And then the one after that will be another level up, and then so on and so forth, and just making sure that everything that we do is incrementally better than the last. I think I had a friend of mine reach out to me and say, "Oh, why? How come you didn't reach out to so and so to do da 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 da?" I said, "Because I'm not trying to get it perfect straight away. You know, like I'm genuinely not. If I reached out to him, like as much as he's a brethren and whatnot, he wouldn't teach me anything. He'll just do it, and I won't. I've learned anything. Do you know what I mean? Rather than me learning the processes of X, Y, and Z, and so on and so forth, and blah 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 blah. I want to know. I want to know. I want to be able to sit in a room and have a conversation with someone about the process of this. Okay, why are we doing that? No, I need to understand because I know. Da, 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 da. You can't just throw stuff at me and expect me to just be yeah. No, I'm having a conversation about this. So that's kind of where it was at. It was still I was still able to achieve and chase goals and do things, even though my world was upside down and intact. So I kind of it's weird because on the outside it's hard, but on the inside I'm glowing still. If that makes sense.
Cool. I mean, look, there's no way I can let you leave, which I will very, very shortly, without you know where I'm going, right?
Oh, okay. I see what you're doing.
Without you've got to give us a verse.
Okay. All right.
We need to hear some rhymes today, Tiri.
Okay. I'm just thinking, do I do something that I haven't? Hang on, let me see what I've got.
Whatever you're the most comfortable with.
I've got a couple that I ain't learned yet, which you could that'll be
or do something that you learn. Like I said, I'm not.
Okay. All right. All right.
Are we getting a speak? Are we getting a speak easy exclusive?
A speak easy exclusive. Everything on here is an exclusive, no? Yeah, you're good. You're good. Okay. All right. Let's go. Right. Where did he come from? Seems like out of nowhere. But I work in the shadows. I spent a long time sharpening my pen. Hawkeye, I'm firing arrows. Ammo's really cocked and loaded. The way I'm going off, it's like I exploded. I was in the championship for a bit, but now I'm going on like I've been promoted. But we're not celebrating. Developing the skill set and patiently waiting is blatant. So without statement, anytime I drop bars, it's devastating. It must be infuriating. I'm going to occupy a spot that was previously taken. Now I've reawakened. I'll never be mistaken. I'm going to get it cooking like a girl started baking. Let's dance and hop to it. I'm just doing what I love. I remember the first time I picked up a mic, fit like a glove, transcended to a new space, wings like a dove. That day, I received a calling. It said from above in an instant, I could see my path in the distance. Android systems work with persistence. The hardest part is to keep it consistent. One day you're here, then you're gone in an instant. That's all about moments, key ones, unlocking doors. Where they get the keys from? Simple, graft them, you craft. And you'll end up winning, not even a deep one. I don't need 5 guys when I walk on street to spend my Starbucks. Now there's an influx, I want bread like ducks. Everything in Dulux. Let's get tasty. Nando's. Now I got my juice up. See where a man goes. Only using information every single man knows. Don't need to see food when you got the right bros. I love training. For me, it's in the hunt. I started at the back, but I'm playing from the front. I might pull it off like a stunt. I'll never seek defeat. Watch me take a punt, intentional and deliberate. I'll fire like a cigarette. Consider it deliberate to idiots, illiterate, belligerent, ignorant, village and immigrant, implement, infinite. Voice is an instrument, extreme execution. The mindset's changed. The goal is the goal, but the plan rearranged. Money's nothing but comfort tokens. If I'm in broke mode, it doesn't mean that I'm broken. The words that I've spoken have led to a moment, focused emotion, and now I'm being chosen. This isn't just openly hoping. Something was stolen and I want it back unbroken. You can buy a nice watch, but you can't buy time. The rules of engagement tell you there's no victimless crime. My energy never changes. It develops in stages. The way I invest my paper is taking me places from writing on these pages. Certain man go on like Pepe Le Pew, way too skunked. Thought it hit the belly, but the belly was a pregnant that again got nothing because the belly got bumped. I'm seeing so much progression. You'd think they've jumped on the chords, already turned down the contract. It came like the shard, too many flaws. So what's been the cause of all of this growth? That Heady once said I've done both. I am at the start of the ocean on my success, like really take a trip to the coast. I'm doing the most, but I never brag or boast. Keep it cooking like a roast. I do it for the love. Just know when I step to a mic, the seed will get it popping like toast. Don't let the internet gas you success overnight means grafting for years, night after night, blood, sweat, and tears, fighting for dreams, handling fears. Almost gave up because nobody cares, feeling like God is not answering prayers. Like you just shaved, nobody hears. Daydreams turning into nightmares. It's like I've been wrestling bears. The way I pump iron just to stay on my grind. I'm not the type you will normally find. The riches I've got can never be mine. I really just bided my time. And I fought off my demons, just bear that in mind. I look to the Lord, Christian no Dior, but he just said, wait and see what I've designed. The truth I will speak. This ain't hide and seek. It could take a week, but it's not for the week. I took time to tweak and drip like a leak. I turn to my talent, not the other cheek. I'm clearly unique. Feel free to critique. Technique on display, it's like a boutique. What will I do next? Let's keep that mystique. Who knows? I might release something midweek. There we go. Exclusive. Exclusive. That I only wrote that about 3 weeks ago. If that, a week ago, week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago.
The last time I heard you do a rhyme was Rhymes in the Room, and yeah, you've evolved, man. The flow, the rhyme patterns, the imagery, still very sharp with the wit.
Yeah, it have to be, man. Pen sharp. Pen's got to be sharpened. But yeah, that's kind of
Plenty of ink.
Plenty of ink. We're gonna see where we go from here, man. We're gonna see where we go. We're gonna keep working, bro.
No, I really appreciate that. Look, before this sort of wraps up, what advice would you give to other aspiring artists and creatives?
Have fun.
Okay.
Legit. The best thing that you can do is to have fun. I think you know in your heart of hearts, if you're not enjoying it, like what are you doing it for? Okay. I think if you're not having fun, then it ain't for you. And you all know the funny thing is, it's kind of like you'll know when, even if people are looking at you saying, well, why are you doing that, so on and so forth, in your heart like this is because this is me, like this is who I am, and this is what I do, this is what I find fun and what I enjoy doing. So that's what I'm going to do, because if the last year or 2 years is whatever has told us, big man, there's not a lot of time to have fun, like you got to enjoy this time, because there's not a lot of it, and there's not a lot of time to do it. So if you're not having fun, what are you doing? That's my biggest thing. The amount of enjoyment you get will tell you whether you're in the right place.
Okay.
Simple as that.
And at Speakeasy, we talk about how we have conversations with artists, creatives, and troublemakers. Which one are you?
Dear. Can I be the first letter of all of them?
Okay.
Just a little piece of each one. I think.
Say all three. I had our last guy we had on, a designer called Tom Hall. He's like, I'm all of them, bro. I'm all of them.
Yeah. I think I'd like to agree with that. I think I pride myself as an artist, because I think it takes a real art to not just do what I do and be bossy about it. But yeah, what I do is an art form. I'm very creative. I'm always trying to think of new ways to try and put this art form out. And yeah, man, like I think sometimes you got to be a troublemaker, man. Like you got to put the cat amongst the pigeons and say, come on, man, like let's pull up some trees and cause a bit of trouble here, and in a good way, to create something positive, obviously. But yeah, I'd like to say, man can be all three, innit?
Awesome. And just finally, where can everyone find you and your work, whether it's Spotify, how to search you, socials, where is it that you're most active, where people can keep up to date with you and what
I mostly probably Instagram. Instagram is probably the most active where I'm at.
and
It's
what's your handle
just
on
literally
Instagram?
Tiri the Seed. So Tiri, then it's the Seed, and that's my handle everywhere. So on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. I don't really use Twitter. Like, I literally use Twitter to look at stuff. I don't really post like that on Twitter. Me and Twitter aren't really friends like that. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, that's another conversation for another day. But I am there. Is there any more? See,
And that's it.
I don't use Snapchat, but yeah, they're the ones. Search up Tiri the Seed. If you go onto my bio on Insta, there's a flow page link. That's got the link to all my stuff. So just go on there, tap it in. There's some freestyles on there, and there's tunes on there, and there's also another shameless plug. It will be the Black Experience. Go buy the book, man. Serious poets on there, like doing things and talking about their experiences as Black people.
And that's on your flow link page.
That's on my flow. That's on my flow on my flow page. So yeah, get on there. There's stuff coming out. Just stay tuned in it. I'm always putting stuff out. And we'll have a nice body of work soon. I'm not putting a time frame on it because I don't know when. To be plainly honest with you, I don't know when it's going to come out, but it will be here. It is coming, and it will count. It will land soon. So yeah, that's me, man. Like, thank you for having me, H. Like, I really appreciate your time. A great conversation, and we're definitely going to do this again. 100%.
You know what? This is what I love about you. Is normally a lot of other guests, they're quite sheepish, shy. They have their way of dealing with things. I was about to sort of say, look, I've got to have you on again. And I've said that to all my guests. I love the fact that this is my show, and you haven't even done the work. You're like, oh yeah, we're going to do this again.
I'm coming back, bro. I'm coming back. I told you, go where the love is. The love is here, bro. I'm coming back, bro.
Okay, well, look, it means a lot that you could feel the love, because honestly, there is so much love here from me to you. I've been a fan since we met, and I feel privileged to call you a friend. And yeah, it's going to be interesting. And this is season 1 of Speakeasy, and to get you on as a guest at basically what is the midpoint of this season, it's been a really fun couple of hours. So thank you ever so much.
We had to chop it up, man. I'm happy to be here, man. I'm happy to be here. It's blessings and guidance always, man.